Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of microscopic viewing of the chemtrail spiderweb type fibers that appeared in my tree October 25th, 2015. And what we're looking at here is a very fine dog hair, and I think this is about 200 power, but with this astronomy telescope on here, I really would have to sit down for a while and calculate it. So this is a very, very fine dog hair, the kind that floats around in the air and winds up in your food, and you say, wow, how did that get there? And okay, now here is a human hair. This is a human hair, and very tough to wiggle because I don't have a XY stage. I've got to pull that back down so we can measure it real quick. Okay, there we go. Make sure it's in focus. Okay, that's reasonable, whatever. So anyway, human hair, this is low power, and I'm just going to make a wild guess that it's a couple hundred power. Okay, so using the center scale, and it's like 85 millimeter. 85 millimeters of human hair. Now let's look at a real spider web, which I robbed from a poor little spider hanging outside my door. And unfortunately, this actually has, I used the silk in the center of the web, so it's covered with the sticky globules, but we can still see how thick the fiber is if I can get it in the screen. Okay, let me focus. Right, now the fiber's in there, but it's got this sticky glue around the web. So let me look around a little more. Oh, there we go. That's what we want. Okay, now this is real spider silk, and I know because I robbed one of these little brown orb spiders a minute ago, and apparently those oblong shapes are the sticky glue that's on the web. Very, very clever. I'm telling you, it's amazing. So if we measure this one, it's about, I don't know, hard to tell, 4 millimeter. Now let's look at the chemtrail fibers that showed up in the treetop that was in my video earlier. And I've got many of these samples. I went outside in the late afternoon, and in 10 minutes I had 6 samples of this stuff. And it was globules just hanging off of different weeds and things. Okay, now these are the actual fibers that showed up in the treetop. This stuff was all over the place today here in Texas. And also, I've got to mention, the humidity was 20% when all this was going on. So maybe it requires a low humidity. Now let's, it's kind of hard to see this focus here, but if I could possibly try to focus it just a little bit more. They're very, very fine fibers. They're very thin, and maybe I just pick this one here at the end, try and measure it. You know, the focus is, I have zero budget, and one guy just trying to do all this by himself is not too easy. Okay, so let's measure this, and we're getting, you know, like, I don't know, 2 millimeter. So the human hair was 85, just on this particular scale, arbitrary magnification here. 85 millimeter, and now spider web was what, 4, and this looks to be, it's so fine I can't actually measure because I can't see the outline clearly. But also, you know, in regular microscopy you'll fix the sample so that you don't have an index or a reflective surface under the cover slip. And since I don't know what this stuff is, I'm not going to put any liquid or anything, and that's why we're getting a lot of this optical distortion, and why it's so hard to tell. Now there's a good fiber towards the top, upper left. Now that one looks pretty good. Let's measure it. it's again about, I don't know, maybe 3 millimeters on this size. So it's much finer than spider silk, and also they're a variable size. Now let me look at another sample. I just, they were just hanging off of treetops and all kinds of things. And oh, here's a very fat globule. And the difference, there's a huge difference between spider web and these chemtrail fibers. Spider webs are strong. I mean, you've got to actually pull and break them. Whereas this stuff, oh, this is much better. This stuff, the slightest touch and it all wads up into a ball and disappears. Because it's attracted to itself. Wherever it touches, it sticks. So it's kind of like wanting to grow. And I think what we're seeing right here is there are some fibers like this, very, very thin, and then others that have grown and are fat and thick. So it's not just growing lengthwise, it's growing diameter-wise. Now that's a really thin one right there in the middle. If I could find my protractor, here we go. And we go, just measure this one here, and it's really hard to guess to make that, but 1 or 2 millimeter, very thin, whereas compare it with some of the larger ones. Oh my gosh, these two, the center bottom there, well, without having fixing the cover slip sample and staining it, and also there's a lot of high-tech microscopes that would be much better for this. But it's like I said before, these fibers are very straight, featureless. If we were to look at the spider web some more, you'd see that it's actually got a granularity to it. But this stuff is extremely smooth. I'm going to move and look at a different spot. In fact, I can move this around a little bit and sort of pan. Anyway, this is what you're breathing, folks. And people were wondering, hey, why don't you do some lab analysis or whatever? This is the first day I have ever seen this. Or maybe I've seen it before and not known what it was. But it was when I looked up at the sun itself and saw all that apparently spider silk falling. That's when I knew, wow, this is not normal. And then you could see it hanging off of the trees. And, it was in the morning was when it was the thickest, and then as the afternoon goes on, it wads up into these tangles of white material. So, and it's pretty difficult to actually get a sample like this. Now, some of this may be, and I apologize because I did not clean these slides or cover slips before grabbing these samples, and that was a huge mistake. But also, if I had something to fix these slides with, I would definitely do it and then mail them off to somebody. But anyway, I thought people would want to see. And just for grins, I'm going to go back to the spider web because that's very interesting, and if I can find it real quick. That ain't it. Actually, with these slides not being fixed, if you lift them up at an angle like that, the cover slip falls off. So, well, I think I just did that. So that's the end of the video. Hope that helps folks understand what we're breathing. Thanks a lot.